Well, welcome to the Tell Me More podcast, where we invite you to be a part of real conversations with real women as we navigate the normal thoughts, feelings, and events in life as Christians. I'm Jess McKinney, and unlike most of our episodes, it's just me here hosting today. So you are stuck with me, and I'm going to have a conversation with all of you instead of with my co-host. It's going to be great. Lydia is transitioning back into work after having her baby, which is awesome, but I do remember what that's like, kind of going back and forth, and it's difficult, and it's definitely a transition period. So she will be back with us for our next couple episodes, which I'm excited about. But for today, we will miss her, and I'm sure you guys have missed her as well. And then Sarah is off on a beach somewhere, enjoying the sunshine and the sand, and I'm living vicariously through her because currently outside, at least earlier, it was pouring. I don't know if it's pouring anymore, but it sure was earlier. So I'm going to live vicariously through her in that I am so ready for beach season. I'm ready to go lay by the ocean. When I was a kid growing up, my parents would take us once a year in June to go to the beach. So as soon as we get close to June, my body's like, it's time to be tan and to lay out in the sun. So I am absolutely ready and jealous of Shopkins and her being down there, but she's going to have a blast with some friends. So that's awesome. My kids do love the beach now, which I take full credit for. So I'm excited to get to go with them in a few weeks. We also have Beach Week coming up, which is exciting, and I get to go lead at that, which I'm excited to do. We have our kids who are moving up into freshman year of high school all the way through seniors who get to go away for a week. And if you know anything about CIY, Beach Week is essentially Southland's version where we take them and we impress upon them some really foundational aspects of what it looks like to follow the Lord. There's a lot of life change that happens, not because of what we do, but because of what God does when we are away on those trips, and it's exciting. We also have middle schoolers going away for mix. So if you were looking away for a way to be involved in those student trips or in our Southland students' lives, we would love for you to be praying for those kids. And I'm also excited to enjoy the sunshine there as well. So it's going to be great. We've been really encouraged by your feedback. I've heard from so many people on Sundays. You guys will pull me aside and just talk about the podcast and how much you've enjoyed listening to it, how you've had women that you've had conversations with because of it, how there have been groups formed around it. Same deal with parenting, and that's really encouraging. So I just want to say thank you all so much for listening. It's exciting for us to know that this really has a good purpose outside of just us getting together to hang out, but really to be able to help model what it looks like to have good Christian community and good Christian conversations. And I would love for you to keep sending those things in. We are going to wrap up season 2 here shortly. And it would be great if we could hear from you to know what you want us to talk about in season 3. So we will put a link at the bottom of the southland.church/podcast page. And if you would go and let us know that you're enjoying it, that'd be awesome. Or what you love about it, or what you'd like us to talk about, or what you feel like women are going through right now. We would love to read through those, and those will help inform us for season 3, which should air sometime in August. So we're excited to do that. Today, we're talking about a topic that you guys sent in at the end of last year, and we're going to talk about being a light in the workplace. I, prior to coming to work at Southland, worked in a couple of different offices, and in general, the biblical worldview that I hold was not one that was shared by my coworkers. It's not a blanket statement, but in general, that was the truth. So there were days where it was no big deal, but there were others days that were really hard because you feel pressure. You feel pressure where folks maybe don't agree with how you are reacting to a situation, or something happens in like the social climate that they're excited about that you're not sure how to navigate, or conversations that you have a hard time having. So we understand the pressures of that. I totally get that. I've been there, and I know that so many of you walk that day to day. So we wanted to talk a little bit about that and invite a guest on who was able to speak into that really, really well. She talks a lot about how we're called to model Jesus' character wherever we are. I mean, that could be work, that could be at home, that could be at the grocery store, that could be any number of places, at the gym. But we're modeling who Jesus is in everything we do, both our thoughts and our words and our actions. And she talks a lot about that. So we're excited to have Leann Vandemark on with us today, and we're going to take a listen to the interview that we had with her. All right, well, y'all, I am excited to be here and sitting down with a couple of very good friends of mine. One, Shopkins. Thanks again for coming and hanging out on the interview. And one you don't know, but you will at the end of this podcast. Leann, thanks for being here. We're excited to have you. Leann is, she's been around Southland for a while, and I'll let her tell you her story. But also, we are excited to have you. One, because you're the wife of our boss, which is super fun. He told me to ask you all the questions about like anything. And I was like, ooh, okay. So
anything.
I know. So my first question was like, tell me about business, Mike. But we'll get to that later.
Tell me about calling him Mike.
I know.
Because no one does.
No one does. You were the
Just
first
me.
person I ever heard call him that, and I didn't know who you were talking about.
Or his mom calls him Michael.
Oh,
Okay.
Michael.
John calls him Mike too, right? Am I crazy?
yeah, he's started to give in to the culture around him.
Well, okay. So I met Vandy, 20 years ago? When we had the orchestra, whenever that was. It was a long time ago. And that's how I got introduced to him. So, like, anytime somebody says Mike, I'm like, I don't know who you're talking
Who is
about.
that person?
Yeah. Anyway. But also, we're excited to have you because we have a lot of really godly Christian women who we can learn from, which is the whole point of this podcast. And you were one of them. So we're grateful that you're
It feels
here.
like large shoes to fill.
No.
I have said multiple times I want to be Leann when I grow up. And you're not that much older than me, so I've really got to get my life
I think you all
together.
did your ages one time, and
We
I was
did.
like, I think I am still
We did.
several years ahead
Yeah,
of you.
but not
that far.
Not that far.
I know.
I'm
But
creeping up.
I'm close to
Cresting
that
40.
next
It's
decade.
fine.
So
Yeah. See, we're all just smushed
50
right in there.
coming,
Make sure you
coming
have a
around the
blowout party.
corner.
What are you
no.
gonna do?
No,
no.
Sarah, no. No
Not
parties.
a party person.
No.
Not a surprise person.
No.
Okay.
No. Mike had a surprise for my 40th.
Oh.
Yeah.
Didn't like it. Didn't appreciate it. I mean, I wasn't mad at him, but I was like, ugh.
That's
It's like you don't
funny.
even know me.
No,
That's
I know.
funny.
And he probably would like a party, and I'm like, I don't want to plan a
Right.
party.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. That's so funny. Okay, so no 50th
No.
big
No,
surprise. I'll just text you and say happy
Yeah.
birthday.
Let's go
Yeah.
to the garden together, right? Let's go to the
Oh,
greenhouse. Let's do
yes.
something like that.
That'd be fun.
Antiquing.
That's what I was going to say,
Oh.
thrift shopping.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Can
Let's
we do that?
Yeah. Let's do it.
I don't have any place to put anything, but
But it's just fun to browse.
Yeah.
It's just fun to look around.
My daughter's decided with antiquing that you can collect anything that doesn't match, but then it kind of matches because it doesn't match.
Well, that's true.
She's like, I'm totally decorating my house this way.
I get that. Yeah.
So-
That
Yeah, I mean,
became
it's
a
true.
thing, like a trend not too long ago. I noticed that like lots of bold colors and things that just didn't go together, like your woods mismatching became a thing, which drives me crazy.
I couldn't. There is a line. Like Anna can be. She's artistic.
Yeah.
She can be
She
a
could
bit
pull it
more
off.
avant-garde.
When we painted her bedroom, she picked her colors out like boom, boom. I have to do like 5 samples on the wall in multiple lights.
Yes.
Think about it, ponder about it, eliminate 1 or 2, try again.
Yep.
And she's like, that teal, that gray. And she was spot on.
That's
I'm like,
amazing.
that, it is amazing.
gift.
Hopefully
needs
she
to
can
pick
help
out all the
me.
paint colors. Yeah. I was going to say, I paint and then I'm like, oh, no, that doesn't look the way that I want. So then I do it again. So it's a mixture of the two and it's not good either way. It's fine. I have paint on my hands right now, actually, from the house. So just disregard if you're watching. So sorry about
Don't you
that.
work hard?
She does.
Oh, it's fine. We're gonna get this house in tip-top shape. It is great. Okay, so we have asked everybody who's come on the show just to tell us a little bit about themselves, tell us their story, kind of how they came to know the Lord, how you came to Southland, anything else that you really want to share. So you can start wherever you want, way back at the beginning or 5 years ago. Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
But we just want to get to know you a little bit. So.
Yeah, so I was raised in a Christian home, and I always joke that I probably was saved like 10, 12, 15 times because I was raised a little bit in that hellfire and brimstone. And so anytime you'd be at a service and they're like, do you not want to go to hell? And I'm like, oh,
No, I don't.
I'm like, just in case I didn't, just in case I
didn't take.
wasn't legit the first, I better,
Right.
raise my hand and pray. So to say like, this is the day I was saved, I don't really know because I asked multiple times. And I literally remember one time being at my grandmother's and they had trains that ran through. And it was, I don't know what time of the day it was, 4 a.m. Some train goes through and it's the whistle. And I thought, is this it? And I'm not flying up. I'm not going anywhere. Like, yeah.
Oh my God.
That's amazing.
The rapture has happened and I got left behind.
And I'm
what?
I'm not going anywhere. Yeah, yeah. So kind of like, I want to believe in Jesus so I don't go to hell.
Right.
Yeah.
I did go to Christian college, and so that's when I started learning, which happened to be Baptist in theology, a little more about grace. And I'm like, wow, this grace is it's so wonderful. And then after college, when Mike and I got married, then he had been to school here, and he's like, what if we live in Kentucky when we get married? I'm like, well, that works. That sounds fun. And he had attended Southland during his college years, so he was familiar with it. And then I think he had like 3 jobs lined up as we were getting married. And one was this church job. And I was like, I thought you were going to be a teacher. And he ended up choosing Southland, and honestly, it's been the best thing for him. And so that's how I came to Southland, which has been almost 26 years ago. So we've been here a long time, long time. Yeah, he was here when Mike Bro was here. So lots of staff, lots of different people. We had a fun little, I think we were driving, we were just talking one time about like all the bosses, all the staff, all the people, and like years, and it's amazing how it all is like a big blur. Like who was here when my son was born, and who was here. But yeah, so I was actually baptized at Southland. Rusty George, if you know that name, we were in a group with him. I had never been baptized. I wasn't raised like that was new to me here. Like when you get saved, like, ooh, get baptized. Whereas a lot of churches, it's, you know, when you're of age or older, understand it, take a class. And so I had never been baptized, and we figured that out in group. And Rusty's like, we can go to church tonight. So like old building B, Theater 81. That, my small group came out and got baptized. So
Fun.
yeah, so I was baptized here.
I was baptized too.
Yeah, back in the day.
Way back in the day.
Yeah.
We joke about like all the offices that we've had and stuff like that over the years. So
and titles and all that. Yeah, people are like, what's your husband do? And I'm like, administrative work and music and, you know. I'm like,
exactly.
And it might change, that title might, no, there's no titles.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Yes. So they're not changing
What do you
anymore.
do? Whatever they ask.
That's funny. Where are you from originally?
Michigan.
That's right. You
So,
said that.
Yeah.
Michigan.
Yeah. Mike and I grew up in the same hometown. We were high school sweethearts.
I forget that. That's right.
Yeah. So we dated like 5+ years, but the majority of that was long distance. So he was here at Asbury, and I went to college at Cedarville University in Ohio. And so we did this long, I know it's very bizarre, this long distance.
But you made it.
Writing letters, you know, because email wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Phone calls cost money.
Yeah.
So you talked maybe once a week.
Yep.
Back
Did you
in
have
the good old
prepaid
days.
cards? That's what I
No,
always
I
had.
think, I don't know. It seemed like maybe it just went on your college bill. And
Oh,
so, like,
that's nice.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. But
I don't think they offered that when I went to college, but
I know.
I don't even remember. I remember barely college.
yeah.
There's
I
little
just
bit of a
moved
blur
around
now.
lot. It's a blur. It was a little
there.
while ago for us. It's
I
fine.
was there.
Yeah.
For the
That's
most
great.
part.
We can relive our glory days of
Let's-
design school.
Yeah.
We discovered that we had the same major initially at UK, and we were lamenting the
Ignorance on my part.
yeah.
I have a very dear friend, and she is a interior designer, which is basically an interior architect.
Yeah.
And
Which sounds fabulous, by the
she
way.
Oh,
is,
yeah.
She is, if Kate Middleton and Martha Stewart were put, and Ina Gar, it would be her. Like, she's just wonderful. And she, looking at what she's able to do and how creative she is, and it just seems simple. Yeah. I look at that and go, how did I ever think, even for a semester or two,
That I could do
that? I can't draw. I can't do math.
Oh.
Just
I
sounded
was
fun.
just more thinking the fact that it was so hard, like, to get a good grade.
Oh.
I struggled to, I was used to getting A's, and I got a C the first semester I was in there, and I was like, man, I worked my tail off.
Yeah.
What am I doing wrong? And they were like, no, this is good. If you get a C, it's like we're grading you on the real world, so you're halfway there. And I'm like, my Keys money doesn't like that.
No.
It was awful.
I got to see an Old Testament. It's my lowest grade.
To be fair, it's a hard.
It is.
It's a hard part of the Bible.
I know, but I was like, ooh, it was an 8:00 class. So sleepy. I can still hear his voice right now. It's so soothing. And you're like falling asleep. I was like, oh, sorry, Lord.
Listen, guys, D is for diploma.
Yeah,
That's all you need to know.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely.
We got it.
Yes.
We have moved on. That's amazing. Those 8 a.m. classes were the worst. I had a music theory class at 8 a.m. and I was like,
Not good.
and I'm not a morning person. So
Oh.
I don't know. It's fine. Anyway. Okay. So the reason that we have you on this podcast, outside the fact that we love you, is to talk about working in outside the church, I should say, and what that looks like as a Christian. So one of the things that we got when we sent out, hey, we'd like to have recommendations for season 2, one of the things that we got, I think, from a couple of people was we want to know how we can continue to walk in our faith and be a good example without being overbearing or, whatever.
Weird.
Yes, yes. Yeah. And without feeling alienated or isolated,
Right.
sometimes being the minority holding a biblical worldview. So you model that really well, and I know you're passionate about it, which is why we have you here today to talk about that. So you can be as detailed or as vague as you would like about what you do, but I just want to know for everyone what you do right now, and if it's what you thought you'd always do.
Yes. So I am a nurse, and I love it. Absolutely think it's the best job for me, for my family. I've said many times, I keep in touch. My college roommate lives in Phoenix, and she's a nurse as well. And we keep up. And then another good friend from nursing school from Grand Rapids, and we all do different things, have done different things. It's kind of fun. But we've said, never did we know that this would be such a good job for females who want to be mom and still kind of keep a foot in the door. Yes. So when my kids were little, I would work. I worked full time until I had Charlie, which I guess I probably should have said I have 2 kids.
Oh, that's great.
When I had him, then I knew I'd go back part time, and I would work 4 hours a week.
Yeah,
that's all I wanted to do. Yeah. Mike could put the baby to bed at night. I would work 7 to 11, 7 to midnight, one evening a week. Yeah. And it just helped me to keep up my skills and be able to mostly be mom, because that's what I wanted to do. So for a hot minute, I thought I'd be a vet. I even worked as in a vet's office for like a small and large animal. I lived in kind of a farming community. And after I saw like these vets are on call, they're delivering cows.
I was going to ask, how many cows did you deliver?
Well, none of that. So I didn't go on farm calls. They pretty much did that on their own. And I was like, I don't want to take call. And then I learned how long schooling was. I was like, ooh, I don't know about that. And like they can bite you and kick you and all the things. Not that patients can't or haven't, but I pretty quickly said, I think I'll do nursing. I can't think of a day or a person I was like, this is why I want to do it. But I was like, I think that would fit my jam, and never wavered. Love the science, love the classes, love the clinicals. Going to a Christian school, I think it was just an additional bonus. We were learning it all through the lens of like, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Like you are made in the image of God. We're not just, our kidneys function in a wonderful way. And so I loved it all. I loved learning. I loved the pharmacology. So, but yeah, I never ever wanted to do anything else. And I still, to this day, even though I'm tired some days and like my kids would be like, Mom, you're so tired. But I'm like, this is the job for me.
Yeah. That's great.
I love it.
Great. Did you ever, sorry, I'm sidetracking here. What was your first job outside of college?
So I made appointments for some man that lived in Atlanta. He was an insurance salesman.
Like from home?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what I did online. Nice. Just for a few months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when did you come here?
September of 2005. So I had just graduated from college.
Okay.
In May.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
And my practicum advisor was like, I think you should, have you thought about working at a church? I said, no, people don't do that. That's not real. And she said, well, it is. And I know this church is hiring. You should look at it.
You're a practicum person at UK?
Wow.
Yeah.
Well.
I was through UK. She was at the hospice care center. She was my field advisor. And I was planning to do hospice care because I loved it.
Yeah.
Almost the same reason, because I grew up surrounded by medical people, and I loved that environment. I love just just taking care of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with hospice, you were doing that in a different way, but you had that team. You had the doctors, the nurses, the clergy people, the social workers, all working to take care of this one patient and their family, and I loved that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting. I never considered going into the medical field because blood and I are not friends. So
Yeah. I guess I wasn't easily grossed out.
Yeah,
Like, I never...
your guts could be hanging out and be like, this is fine. This is all fine. I
if
won't
it's
do
you-
dishes without gloves. Like, water and...
that's amazing.
Oh,
I don't like
disgusting.
reaching into the sink to grab the drain.
No.
It's a lot.
I
It's like,
will-
would you do that, please?
I'll get utensils and do it. I'm not touching it. I can't.
Oh, that's so
Get
funny.
a paper towel because I can't touch it. It's fine.
Yeah.
I've tried to talk my kids into some sort of something in them, and they're like, no.
Yeah.
Their kids
Like
will.
capital N-O, no.
Your kids are so creative
Yeah.
that the Lord will give them really science-y kids just to annoy
Yes.
them.
Yeah. My mom
Which will be
says
great.
that because I'm one of 5, and 4 of us do sciencey type stuff. And she plays piano. She's, kind of like business
interesting.
degree.
Yeah.
And she's like, how did I get all these sciencey kids? I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'm trying to think. If that tracks in my family. My mom was a music teacher though. And my dad did like theater and drama, although he is very business minded and like money management minded. And
your
stuff like
sister's
that.
sciencey.
Yes. It's so
So they got
funny.
1 out of 2. If they'd had 3 kids, I bet the odds would have been in her
Probably,
favor.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wonder what my kids will be. I mean, Ashlyn loves rocks and stuff, but she also loves to sing. So who knows? I don't know.
Listen, I wanted to be a bus driver when I was super small. I was
Singing
like,
archaeologist.
yeah.
I mean, it could happen.
A bus
loves rock.
driver.
That's
I do think our
amazing.
bus drivers, like they have one of the hardest jobs. It doesn't seem like it. But you just,
Oh, nowadays,
patience.
yeah.
Yeah,
I was
and-
scared of my bus driver.
Yeah, and
she'd
if,
pull
like-
that bus over and she'd
yeah.
lay the law down. I mean,
amazing. But just in those kids, that's you're the one constant most of them see every day.
Yeah.
That's a lot of responsibility, but that's not what you do.
A lot of
No,
potential
no.
impact though. That's
People
kinda
don't even
cool.
know that they see you. They may be completely out
that's
of it.
right. They're sedated and yeah, they are.
That's amazing.
What's the funniest thing someone's ever done under sedation? Are you allowed to tell?
Well, here's the thing. I think a lot of this. So I did several years in the hospital, which wonderful. And then I moved into oral surgery, and all these kids post these videos, and I'm like, these are so made up. Like this is not. You're sleepy
Yes.
when you get sedated. You're
Yes.
sleepy. And sometimes confused, like you're like, what? And you repeat the same question. But I'm like, all of this like I'm riding on a horse. No, they're not. Like that is so.
Yeah.
I did have one patient who got really angry, and he had no memory of it once. And I thought, this man looks like he could punch me.
Yeah.
I was explaining this was like in the oral surgery world, and his wife came back, and he'd had his operation done. And I'm trying to explain it, and he's like, you can talk to me, and I'm like, yeah, I get it. I was like, but I'm going to tell your wife too because you might not. I mean,
Right.
but didn't matter what I said. He was mad about it, and he apologized when he came back for a post-op appointment because his wife told, which I didn't care.
Right.
And he had no memory of. I guess I don't know this, but they say you can be a mean drunk or a happy
Right.
drunk,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
maybe that's how he reacted.
Yeah,
but
that's interesting.
It's very interesting. Yeah.
I'm always nervous.
He's going to be so mad at me. I have a friend who we all know who had his wisdom teeth taken out a couple of years ago. And his now fiance was with him at the time and took a video and said, "Hey, say hi to Jess." And he goes, "Hey, Beth." And I still have that video. And I'm like, you couldn't even remember
wanna
my
see
name,
it.
buddy.
Yeah.
It's so funny. And I'm like, that's the worst thing that you said. Like, that's not bad at all.
No, it's not bad.
No.
So.
I don't know. I've never been under sedation.
Ever?
So, no, not for anything. I still have my wisdom teeth and all the things. So
Ooh.
I don't know what I would say, but I always get like nervous.
Probably
whenever I have to
nothing.
do
You'll be
that.
like,
Yeah.
Probably.
you'll sleep.
Yeah.
So.
And we don't understand. Like you think sedation and that you're completely out, but
Right.
there's some of them you're just kind of
Conscious
sort of
sedation
which is
what we call that. Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
And then you have no memory of it.
Yeah.
That baffles me.
I know.
It's very, and it kind of can wig people out. They're like, I don't remember this. Like,
Yeah.
so now I currently, which I can say I would do cataract surgery.
Yeah.
And so most people need both eyes done. Well, you do one and then you wait and you do the other. And they'll be like, I don't remember this from the first time. And sometimes that bothers them.
Yeah.
And other times we're like, well, that's really normal because the one medicine we give causes amnesia. So
Yeah.
it is. It is strange.
I love it.
Time just kind of stops, pauses,
weird.
delays.
Yeah, it's
It's
bizarre
weird.
to me. I wonder where all of those memories go, if they're in there somewhere or what.
I don't know.
Interesting. Okay, so on any given like work week, like we have tough work weeks, we have easy ones, and I'm sure you love the people that you work with, which makes things great. But there are situations where you're going to end up feeling like you are I'm going to say minority for lack of a better term, just where you hold a biblical worldview and you're approaching things a certain way and, something negative may affect you differently than the people that you work with. So just kind of walk me through, like, how do you respond and react knowing sometimes that you are the only one filtering things through that lens?
I would say I've never been met with like hostility towards it. I think where we live, this is still the Bible Belt. This is still most people. I remember going to college with a girl who lived on the East Coast, and she's like, I can't believe all the churches that are here. And so you just take for granted that most people have somewhat of a knowledge and interest, a grandmother, an aunt, someone. I don't feel like I very rarely meet someone who's like never been to church. So I feel like for the most people, they think it's a good thing. It's an okay thing. Now, they'll tease me, and we all laugh about it at work now, because I don't choose to do things outside of work that others may. And sometimes that's evident at a work party or, and they like to just tease me, or I always tease them, and I'm like, we can only do rated G jokes in my OR, no dirty language, but what's funny is, within moments, it feels like that you work with somebody, they don't know you very long, and they'll swear or say something inappropriate, like, oh, I shouldn't say that around Leann. I've never said, like, don't talk that way. Yes, it's really interesting how certain things they just figure it out really quickly. Like, oh, she doesn't talk that way, or oh, she doesn't say that, she doesn't do that, she doesn't, and you don't even have to tell them. It just is, I've had so many people be like, oops, I shouldn't say that in front of you.
That's great,
which
though.
I think is always very interesting. But
you just want them to be them.
And I
you
think
can say whatever you want.
They know that, and I always say, I'm like, I think you don't know. Like, I have 3 older brothers, so there's probably not much that you're going to say or do that's going to like embarrass me.
That's funny.
Yeah,
I do love that they know, though, and I do think that's interesting. I worked very briefly in a law firm before, a while before coming here, but it was very much the opposite of what I was brought up learning about, and it was not how I learned to treat people. But because of what they do, they had to be able to walk in and debate something just like that and defend something just like that. So I understand why it was the way that it was. But man, there were times where I was sitting there like, how are you talking that way to somebody? It makes me so uncomfortable. I don't know what to do about it. You know what I mean?
There are times you just like, I can't offer.
Yes.
You're not, I'm like, I can't relate.
Yeah.
I have nothing to offer to this conversation. And so you just sit quietly or,
Well, it is interesting though, because they also, I don't feel like I was overly outward about, like, I didn't hide the fact that I went to church and that I love the Lord, but I also wasn't like, hey, let me talk to you today about what I learned on Sunday when I went to church.
Wearing your Turner Burns t-shirt.
Yes, didn't do any of those things, but there was a certain, like, at some point they all kind of figured out, like, oh yeah, she's just not going to respond to these things, or like, I'm not going to rile her up about this. Or I can remember there was a bill that was passed about, and I can't remember which state it was, but it was legalizing gay marriage, and they were so excited, and they were like, hey, isn't this awesome? And I was like, oh, buddy, here we go.
Yeah, you're that's more than just a yes or no answer.
How long do you want to talk about this? So I was just There were some interesting situations I found myself in, but I would say they did the same thing where they were like, oh, sorry, I said whatever it was that I was going to say, and I shouldn't have said that around you. And I'm like,
yeah.
I mean, it's
I
not
think
like I
also on
haven't
the
heard
flip
it.
side, like if I laugh at something, I think sometimes they'll either like, oh my word, she's laughing. You know? And I'm like, I'm not that much of a prude. I mean, like things are funny. Like,
It's amazing. I do tell jokes.
I do. I know.
I love medicine and see it more as a calling than a career. Yeah. That's just the way I was kind of raised around it.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of ministry.
Yeah.
So you are with people, not just your patients.
Yeah.
When your colleagues have really crappy days, because whether you follow Jesus or not, it's gonna happen.
Yes, for sure.
So how do you then help? How do you get through it?
Yeah.
How do you face those just those really dark and heavy moments? And then how do you help them in just really tangible and simple ways to go, let me walk with you through this?
Yeah. So I would say the first several years of nursing, I always said, like, the Lord brought me to nursing because it causes me to pray. Because I'm a little bit of like a type A, like, if it says you're going to do these things, like, I'm absolutely going to do them. If you change this bag at 24 hours, I will change it at 23 hours. I will, like, da-da-da-da-da. So, and in the hospital, you just never know what you're walking into.
Yes.
And so that was more like, Lord, keep me safe, keep me competent, keep me on top of things. You're the first line of defense for these people because the doctors are not there. You're the first one that's like, something's not right. And learning, like, you have to call people and they're like, you know, trying to like push back a little bit. And that was not my nature. I'm better at it now. I think you get more brassy as you get a little older. But it was more of like, Lord, just like, help me be safe, help me take care of these people. I would say as I left the hospital, and I was a good friend to people there, but as I left the hospital and started working in the private setting, you do feel like you develop a work family. And so whether it's, you know, getting to know these people and their kids and their spouses and the ups and the downs. But, you know, my current job, I had a coworker whose daughter really, really sick, ended up being a burst appendix. She ended up having, I mean, on a ventilator, I mean, near death, septic, all these things. And I remember when they kind of gathered us around and said, hey, she's not going to be here today or probably for several weeks. I remember the first thing I thought was, I need to pray. And not all these people are believers, but I was just like, hey, do y'all care if I just say a word of prayer? And, you know, people have come to me later and been like, hey, can you pray about this? And sometimes I'll joke because I have a kitchen cupboard by my stove. And I'm like, if you really need prayer, I'm going to like put a sticky note on the cupboard because I may just forget. I'll leave work and be like, oops, forgot. So I'll tease them. I'll be like, you're going on the cupboard. You're getting a sticky note. I'm going to be, and I joke, you're going to be praying about this. But we had another coworker whose son was killed in a car accident, older. And I remember the same thing. I just thought, what can you do but pray? Right. To just stand here and be sad, or I mean, that's just the first thing you think of. And I'm just like, let's just pray. That's all we can do is pray for her. And she was a believer as well. And I remember how surprised they were at her resiliency, which we all walk through grief differently. And I remember thinking, like, that's because she knows the Lord. She knows the Lord, and you just approach it differently. But you don't know these, you know, you deal with your patients who come in, they're in a vulnerable moment. They're very anxious, very nervous. I think anytime you're having anything work done above the neck, it's alarming. It's scary. It's your vision. So you're talking them off of a ledge, but then you've got your coworkers, your work family, who's got, you know, a kid who's being bad, who's a single mom. Some of my coworkers have second jobs. They're tired, they're busy. And so I think just practicing kindness to them, listening to them, how was your day? How is your son? What's going on with your mom? What's, you know, just trying to be concerned for them. And then I love to bake for my coworkers. So, I like to take treats. So my family thinks that I don't bake for them ever. And I'm like, if I left all these treats for us all the time, like, this would be so bad.
Absolutely.
So bad. But I will bake and take treats in. And it's just little, like, it's probably all people, but I feel like our office, we love to eat.
Oh, yeah.
Love to eat.
Well, and it's we've gotten away from that as a culture of really tangible things that take time.
Yeah.
So when you get a handwritten note now, it hits you differently than it used to.
Yes.
And when you take the time to bake or do
it's not hard.
It's
either.
not.
And I've realized that. I'm like, I have this particular chocolate chip cookie recipe.
Yep.
Sometimes Anna will make it up and she'll be like, I'll do the mixing, but I don't want to bake. And I'm like, that's so easy.
Yeah.
And they love it.
Yeah.
They love it. And it's such an easy way to be like,
of them.
hey guys, like brought in a treat. We're going to make it through this day today. So
to be on someone's mind.
I think so.
It does make a difference.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. It's almost like emotionally overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just me.
Just to be, just to be
I
kind.
don't like emotions, so I'm like,
Yeah, I think that's a big deal, though. And I think it's also good. I like what you said about this, and Sarah, you alluded to it also, but just the fact that I think we get in a box where we think ministry is something you do when you work at a church, and it is absolutely not. I mean, it is, but it's so much bigger than
so
that.
much more than that.
There are so many ways to be in ministry, and that's what each of us is called to. And so doing things like baking for your coworkers, or just praying for them, or being kind to them, or whatever it is, the way that you care for your family, all those things are ministry. They're a big deal, and they make a big impact. We just moved, which I think everyone in the world knows at this point. But the neighbors that we had at our previous house, like, it was really sad to leave them because our neighbor would go out of his way to do anything that he could to help us. He was like, do you need this? Do you need help moving? Do you need, you know, what can I do to help you? Because he just loves to serve other people, which is awesome. And it made a big impact on us, you know, so I think that can extend into the workplace. I was wondering if you had any cool stories, because you've worked a few different places. Do you have any stories of like relationships that you've made at one workplace and have continued just because, you know, anything
I think
cool
so.
like that?
I feel like nurses are kind of a bonded people. So I may have worked with this person briefly for a few years, but which in some ways it's good because you're like, hey, I know you work in such and such, like, which doctor should I see?
Yeah.
Right.
Like if
That's
a nurse
great.
tells me to see this person, I'm like, I'm totally believing them because they know. When I needed to pick my pediatrician, I remember asking a coworker who had worked in children's for a while, and she said, hey, I want you to see, you know, try this guy. She's like, he calls his wife every night when he's here, and he's so kind. And I was like, yep. And I was like, that's a good quality. He cares about his family. He cares about others. And I picked that pediatrician and have been 110%.
That's amazing.
Isn't that funny? Yeah.
We need like a Yelp with all of the insider, you know?
Yes. So I feel like we can kind of have this little niche, just connectivity anyways. But one particular friend, Mike and I have talked about her several times, that I worked with. And I feel like in so many cases, people like, man, the church gets a bad rap. Christians get a bad rap. For some reason, that's just something like, they just want to hold on to that.
Yeah.
Judgmental, hypocritical, whatever it is. I don't like this. I don't like that. But this one gal, I don't even know her entire history. I know she went to church as a kid, but she was so just different, but in a great way. Like, I mean, tell it to you straight. Yeah. She was my boss at one of my jobs, had become a really good friend. And she was just so surprised that Mike, a Christian working at a church, would like play in a bar and would, but she loves music. Biggest lab band fan of all.
Love it.
Yeah, I tease her. She's been to every concert, and so that relationship we've had, I think, has been just really good for her to see, like, you know what, like, you can love Jesus, you can be fully committed to your church, and you can go listen to music in a bar. And it's okay. Like, and I know that seems really simple, but there was something she was holding on to, an experience, a judgment, whatever.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, I'm like, yeah, like he does that sometimes, and that's okay. Like that, he doesn't do anything wrong. He does, you know, and we have just formed a really, really good relationship. She started coming to like Easter service, Christmas service occasionally. She liked Saturday evening better.
Oh, yes.
Because she's not a morning person at all. And I know. So she would be one in particular who we've maintained. I think I met her in 2011.
Oh, yeah.
And so we we have, like I said, we've maintained a friendship all these years.
Fun.
And I don't see her a bunch, but we talk, and she'll call and she'll be like, I just needed to hear, I need to tell you this, So that would be one in particular that I thought, we're not, just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you
Right, yes.
can't go do fun things.
No, it doesn't. But what would you tell someone who is, okay, Leann, that's all great, and little ray of sunshine, but my work is really, really hard.
Yeah.
And I feel really alone. How would you encourage them?
Yeah. I would say, what is it about your work? Like, what drives you? What pushes you to do what you want to do? Are you even in the right job? Like, that would be my first. I'm not saying you just run from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, what are you passionate about? Is this just a 9 to 5? Is this just a paycheck?
Yeah.
It's just a paycheck. Can you
That
go
makes it way harder.
Can you go
Yeah.
somewhere else? And then like, what are you doing outside of here? I'm really blessed in that I have a great sounding board at home.
Yeah.
So I know Mike Vandy is your boss, and probably business Mike is different than home Mike.
Oh, he's a sounding board.
Yeah.
I was going to say, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
He probably doesn't want to be as much of one. But
I know. So he just wouldn't steer me wrong. And he will often say, tell me about your day. And so he knows, what's funny is he knows names of a lot of people at work.
Yeah.
He's met very few people at my job.
Yeah.
But I'll be like, so-and-so and so-and-so and so, and then this and that and this, and we did this, and we had this patient, or, and I'll give him like a full rundown. And I've obviously had some struggles. Those aren't things that I'll, share here, but a few things that kind of like pressed into like my integrity a little bit. But I have a really good sounding board in him that I can say like, hey, this is an issue, or this is, and sometimes it's best to just, listen to that. But for someone who, whether they're married or not married, but, you have to lean into your people who are going to support you
have to
and
have
give you
that.
that wise counsel.
Yes.
You just can. You can't. I've not been in a place where I'm the only one who truly believes. Like I said, I feel like here in the Bible Belt, you've got people who at least respect it, or they're okay with it, or in this day and age, like, oh, that's great, you be you.
Yeah.
Right.
So sometimes I don't really feel like it's as offensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you have to have your people who keep you grounded and who don't let you spin out of control.
And who can call you like, hey, call you out on those actions.
Right.
Just because that person, like I'm thinking of, just because that doctor talked down to you doesn't mean that you get to respond in the way that you want to.
And I would say I've gotten thicker skin over the years. And this isn't arrogant at all, but I know I'd give 110% when I'm at work.
Yeah.
And I was actually training somebody recently, and the doctor said something to me, and I probably could have really been like, well, And I told her when it was done, and I said, that's a really great example for you to see how you might get responded to. And I said, you just have to shrug it off.
Yeah.
I think it's Elisa Childers who says this at the end of all her podcasts. She's like, we need sharp minds, soft hearts, and thicker skin.
Yeah.
And I think that thicker skin is so needed. We're so easily offended. So like, just brush it off. Like I know, and it's not in an arrogant way, I know I'm doing a great job.
Yeah.
I'm doing everything you ask me to do because I follow it by the book.
Right.
I write it down. I'm doing it. And so if you ask something different that you don't normally do, because they can.
Yeah.
You're like, wait a minute, for 3 years, you've wanted it this way. And now today, I'm like, what? I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So I'll do it today. And when you change your mind, then I'll just do it again.
Right.
But if they snap at you a little bit, or they're having an off, whatever, you just have thick skin. You're like, I'm doing a great job. Tomorrow will be different.
I think that thick skin is just another word for being graceful towards them.
I think so. Yeah.
Like you're going, that's not,
Yeah.
either that's not you, or you are kind of a jerk and I'm still gonna be kind to you. There are those people who just have, they have not met
Sure.
Jesus, or Jesus hasn't refined that part of them.
Yeah.
They go,
I had some nurses years and
not-
years ago, and they were just dumping. You would do these 12-hour shifts, and I was doing nights, and there was nothing worse than getting an admission.
Yep.
You're supposed to give report at 7 a.m. and leave.
Yeah.
And the ER's calling at 6:20, 6:30 in the morning. And so, and I remember this, she kept dumping on me, and I just was like, why is this happening? And I was driving home, and it was like, la, and the Lord said, and the Lord was like, they don't know me.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, like what a novel idea. Like so lower your expectations. And not that Christians are way up here, because we fail miserably too.
Right.
Yeah.
But stop holding people to this standard that they don't hold themselves to, you know.
Yep.
And just be gracious in that, you know.
Yeah, we talked a lot about emotional maturity, and I feel like that's basically what that is.
Yeah.
Being able to understand that we don't respond with our emotions.
Yeah.
We have to view people the way that God created them and know that they were made in his image too. And whether they choose to reflect that or not is up to them. But having a lot of grace for that is a big deal, because we're all going to deal with difficult people. Oh, I can be difficult, and I love the Lord. So like I just,
isn't that the truth?
This may be out of the, too bad Lydia's not here. She could probably correct my theology, but I was talking about
I can't correct
with the eclipse and is Jesus coming back and all those things. You're just goofing around. And then you get into the conversation of, what would you ask? What are you going to ask? What is your first thing? Oh. And I was talking to someone, I thought, I want to know, genuinely, I want to know why in the Old Testament that when they're bringing the children of Israel out, and they're they're wandering, and they get bitten by all these snakes, and the Lord commands Moses to put a bronze snake on a stick, which is where we get the medical symbol now. It's where that's from. Look on this and you'll be saved. And it's, every time I read that, and I go, why? That's just another idol. Like, that's not you. Lord, that is not you. Yeah. But I don't know that this is true, but it feels like he's going, no, that's not me, but that's all they know. And so I'm going to meet them where they are and give them something to look at, because they're just not able to see me yet. And that's not to say that God is, lenient in his demand for glory and things like that, but he meets us where we are, and he knew those children. And I don't know if that's true, but it's he's gracious enough to give the children of Israel, you are so bad at letting me love you and lead you. Here's this, and you can look at this. Yeah. So I don't know if that's true, but that's where I am with it.
I've been reading. I told you all this when I started. I guess we started the first season. I was reading through the Old Testament, and the number of times that the leader of the Israelites has to remind them of all that they've walked through. It's not just once or twice or three times. And it's not just remember what the Lord did. It's here are chapters and chapters of me reminding you again what I have done for you. Yeah. It's
but I say it's crazy, but then parenting and other stuff. I thought, I had no idea you'd have to tell my kids so many times. Say thank you. Say thank you. Say please. Whatever the thing. I'm and I remember, I don't even know how old one of my kids were. And I was I felt like it was around the age 12. I'm I'm still reminding them to. I'm oh, wow.
That doesn't give me a lot of hope. I'm going to be honest.
Oh, have hope. Have hope. I bet you could do a whole nother podcast on the next season, because that's what Mike and I are easing into, is this season of I'm going to say not being needed as much. It's very interesting. Yeah.
There are topics we just, as society, we don't talk about. That's one of them. How to be a parent to an adult kid. Yeah. How to be an adult kid.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. And have older parents.
We've talked about that. Maybe we'll talk about that on one of the podcasts, because no one prepares you for that.
Well, and the whole, this would be and I have no insight on it, but the whole idea of honoring your father and mother.
Yep.
I feel I've encountered so many people we're in such a write off. I'm just done with that. I don't do that. I don't. You know? And I'm you may have a difficult parent, but I'm I don't know. We were difficult kids, and they weren't just I'm done with you.
Right. Yes, yeah.
So, that would be a topic that, I don't know, you'd have to get someone really smart. I'm still figuring it out. Mike and I are sort of in that. We have parents all in our 80s, in their 80s.
Yep.
And then we have kids who are almost 20 and 16. And so you're sort of needed on both ends.
Right.
Right.
But the need is different.
Very different, yeah.
I often want to remind my mother when she gets frustrated with me getting frustrated at her. Do you remember having a mom? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
But then she turns it around.
I did everything
I don't
for
think
my
that's
mother. I thought you were going to say that she said, I raised you. And
no, she knows this is all her fault.
Oh.
All her fault.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. I know I'm getting payback right now from things that I did to my parents with my kids. I'm like, well, that's me. I totally
Mom
did
used
that.
to threaten me with that. She would just wait until you have children. So not that long ago, joke's on you.
I can send mine to your house for a little while if you want to experience
busy.
that.
You're busy.
Okay.
I think I've got to wash the floors or something.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Okay, well, I'm going to wrap us up, but before we completely close, is there anything else that you were like, I just really wanted to share that before we close out today? Any sage advice you may have or wisdom that you want to drop?
I think I actually sat when you invited me. I just sat, and this was before the questions.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of thought, and I couldn't think of all the. There's multiple verses in the New Testament that all speak on like what you're doing, what you're saying.
Yes.
And when you like list them all out, I thought to myself, you know, like I would make a great legalist because I love like rules and checklists.
Yeah.
But, you know, we don't want to live in that camp. Right. However, it is super interesting to see all the things that we are to avoid. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is language and what we're doing and things that we are to do, which is practice kindness. And when you think of the fruits of the Spirit.
Yes.
And so it almost feels like there's no room for just that mean behavior, that catty behavior, the gossiping, the not being helped. Like there's no excuse.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect at it. You know, we all have our days, but I just like, there's just not room for it in the workplace. There really isn't. I work part-time, which I think helps. I've pretty much worked part-time since having kids, so I have a little buffer.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have such an opportunity to just do the right thing, to just do it. And it's not always easy. And I'd even question, like, is this fake? Because I don't always do this at home.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm grumbling and muttering at home and I mean, at work, and I'm just like, la, la, la. But I'm like, no, I think there are, you just have to choose and do the right thing.
Yeah. I like that you said opportunity, because that's what I was thinking. Like, we have the opportunity to be a positive influence or a negative influence. So what are we choosing?
Yeah.
We're choosing to be a positive as to the best of our ability.
Because we know Jesus.
And we want other people to know
And you
him.
want other people to know. The Great Commission wasn't just for those those 12 people standing. There's probably more. But that's the brief.
And there is
Go
a
into
little
the
side
world.
of me too that's like, I love church so much and I love Jesus so much. And I'm just like, I want to do all I can to be like, you may have a bad experience or bad opinion, but darn it,
another shot.
I'm here. Like, let's try this again. Like,
And I'm sorry about that.
I can be fun. I can be kind, all these things.
Yes.
So don't write it all off, because it's way too important.
Yeah.
It's way too good.
Absolutely.
So
That's awesome. Well, thank you for
Thank you,
joining us and
Leann.
chatting with us. This was fun.
I know.
I'm excited. All right. Well, we will catch you guys on the next episode of Tell Me More.